Have you ever felt the eyes on you, even when no one was there? The kind of watching that makes your skin crawl, your heart hammer, and your mind question reality itself? Imagine coming home late at night, exhausted from work, only to feel a presence in the shadows across the alley, a shadow that isn't supposed to exist. You're not imagining it, because when I saw the curtain move, I realized the nightmare had already begun, and it wasn't going to stop until I uncovered the truth. I used to live in a small studio apartment in Chicago after finishing college. It wasn't much, just a single room on the top floor of a 3-story building, but it was mine. I picked it because rent was cheap and it was close to work, and at 23 with student loans stacking up, perfect wasn't an option. The apartment was functional, clean, and quiet. There was one window that looked out over a narrow alley. Across that alley was another building, almost identical to mine. The alley was so narrow that only a car could squeeze through at a time, and during the day, sunlight barely touched the ground. At night, it was pitch black, dark enough to swallow shapes whole. I never really minded. I worked late nights bartending, usually getting home around 2:30 or 3 a.m., ordering a quick snack, and zoning out on my phone until sleep claimed me. It started subtle. One night, about a month after moving in, I came home and flipped on the overhead light. That's when I thought I saw something move in the window across the alley. A flicker, maybe a curtain twitching. I froze, heart thumping. But when I blinked and focused, nothing. The window was dark still. I shook it off. The next night, it happened again. This time I caught it for sure. A hand pulling the curtain back slightly before letting it fall. No face, no figure, just a slow, deliberate movement. The apartment across the alley always seemed empty. I had never seen a light on, and now this subtle gesture made my skin crawl. I began testing it. I'd sit quietly, lights off, watching. Nothing. But the second I turned even a dim lamp on, the curtain would twitch. Someone was watching me, and they weren't hiding it. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe someone liked looking out at night. Maybe it was coincidence. But timing this perfectly to my arrival? Too precise to ignore. I asked my landlord about the unit across the alley. Vacant. Had been for months. I pressed him again. Still vacant. He laughed, saying I was being paranoid. I didn't call the police. Not yet. I didn't want to be that person reporting a ghost hand. Then came the note. One night, after a particularly long shift, I returned around 4 a.m. exhausted. I opened my door and noticed something wedged in the frame. A crumpled piece of paper. My stomach sank. I pulled it free. On it, in plain pen, was a single word. Hey. I bolted to the window across the alley. The curtain was drawn. The apartment was dark. But my stomach told me what I already knew. I wasn't alone. I called my friend Jamie, panicked, and she told me to come over immediately. I grabbed a backpack, stuffed essentials inside, and left. The next day, I confronted the landlord again, demanding to see the apartment across the alley. He hesitated, but eventually gave me the key. Inside, the apartment was dusty, empty, and silent. The floor creaked under my feet. The walls were bare, stripped of character, like a forgotten storage room. But in the back room, facing my window, sat a single metal folding chair, positioned perfectly to watch my apartment. I called the police. They took fingerprints, looked around, and found nothing. Still, I knew the truth. I had been watched, and my paranoia had been correct. Even after that discovery, leaving wasn't enough to stop the harassment. I moved out that week. But sometimes, in the middle of the night, I dream about that window. I wake with a jolt, convinced someone is still there, staring. Weeks later, I thought I was safe. My new apartment, new city, new life. But the pattern returned. The whispers. The faces in the crowd. People repeating phrases only my ex could have known. And finally, a hotel visit where someone knocked on the door. Slow, deliberate, unblinking. A blank face, nothing spoken, just a presence that rooted me in place with fear. It wasn't Caleb, my ex. He was in rehab. It had to be someone else. Someone hired. Someone with a plan. Someone who knew how to make me never feel safe again. I left again, vanished from social media, changed my hair, moved neighborhoods. But even now, when I walk down the street or lie in bed, I can't shake the feeling of being watched. It's in the small things. The shift of a curtain, a reflection in glass, the quiet breathing outside a window. I don't know if I'll ever escape it. I don't know if I want to admit that someone out there, someone unseen, knows me better than I know myself. And when I close my eyes, I always hear it. Hey. It all started in the summer after my final year of college. My friends and I, Abby, Marcus, Tim, Hannah, and I, decided to go on a weekend trip deep into the Blue Ridge Mountains. We wanted to escape the city, unplug from everything, and soak in the wilderness. None of us had ever been that far off the grid, but the lure of isolation and quiet was irresistible. We rented a cabin through a listing that promised secluded, peaceful, and private, the kind of place where cell signals didn't exist and the nearest neighbor was miles away. When we arrived, I remember thinking how idyllic it looked. Towering pine trees surrounded the property. The air smelled crisp and earthy, and the distant lake glimmered under the sun. It was perfect. The first night went smoothly. We set up our tents in a clearing near the lake, cooked over a fire, and shared stories. The warmth of the fire and the distant sounds of crickets and frogs lulled me into a sense of comfort I hadn't felt in months. But as the night wore on, a subtle unease began to creep in. It was almost imperceptible at first, a rustling in the trees, the way the shadows seemed to shift unnaturally as the firelight flickered. I tried to convince myself it was my imagination. After all, forests always look different at night. By the second night, the feeling had intensified. Around 11 p.m., we were sitting around the fire, roasting marshmallows and joking, when Marcus froze mid-laugh and pointed toward the tree line. "Do you guys see that?" he whispered. We all turned, but there was nothing visible. "See what?" Abby asked nervously. I thought I saw someone, a figure, maybe 30 yards out, ducking behind a tree," Marcus said, voice tight. Tim rolled his eyes. "Probably a deer," he said, though even he didn't sound convinced. Minutes later, a sharp snap echoed from the direction Marcus had indicated. We all jumped. Not a deer. Nothing about the sound was natural. It was deliberate, too precise. We froze, listening. Eventually, we convinced ourselves it was probably a hiker or another group nearby. Still, the fire burned brighter than usual that night. We tried to sleep, but even zipped into our tents, I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone. I lay awake, listening. The forest should have been silent except for the occasional hoot of an owl or rustling leaves. But something else moved out there, deliberate, patient, observing. Around 3 a.m., I woke to the faintest sound of breathing just outside the tent. My heart thudded painfully. At first, I thought it might be Abby or Hannah leaving for a bathroom break, but the sound was wrong. Older, strained, deliberate. It moved slowly along the edge of the tent. I didn't dare reach for my flashlight. It circled the tent once, twice, then stopped. Silence followed, oppressive and thick. I waited, frozen, until the first light of dawn crept over the trees. The next morning, we compared notes. Marcus had been half awake and heard footsteps. Hannah admitted she heard someone pacing around the tents. Tim, surprisingly, said he had ventured out once in the night and thought he saw a figure crouched near the fire pit, naked, moving unnaturally fast. We laughed it off, nervous, but trying to pretend it was a joke. A hiker, maybe a prankster, anything that allowed us to rationalize it. But the footprints told a different story. In the mud, circling our tents, were bare human prints. No shoes, no explanation. They led into the trees and vanished. We stayed on edge the rest of the day. No one spoke much. Even the forest, which seemed magical in the sunlight, had an oppressive feel now, like it had secrets it didn't want us to uncover. That night, we built a much larger fire, huddled close, keeping flashlights at our sides. At 2 a.m., a sound, crunching leaves, came again, and then a voice. Low, quiet, almost a whisper, but human. "I see you guys." I froze. The voice didn't belong to any of us. It came from the darkness beyond the circle of firelight. Marcus snapped on his flashlight. For one terrifying second, I saw him, a man crouched naked, eyes glinting in the firelight, moving like an animal. Then he vanished into the trees. We didn't sleep. Not a second. We stayed close, whispering, keeping our flashlights moving. Every sound in the forest made us jump. Branches snapping, leaves rustling. It could have been him circling again. Morning brought no relief. We packed our things, moving quickly through the forest paths back toward the parking area. At the ranger station, we told them everything. They listened carefully, nodded gravely, and said that there had been previous reports of intruders in the area. Thieves, vandals, maybe worse. Some claimed to have seen forest dwellers, people who had been living off the grid for years, watching campers and hikers. We left, shaken, exhausted, but alive. I couldn't get the image of the man out of my head. The crouching, the unnatural speed, the way he moved silently, unseen but always present. Even now, I replay that night in my mind. The laughter around the fire, the first glimpse of stars over the lake, and the creeping realization that we were not alone, that we had trespassed unknowingly into someone else's territory. I still dream about those footprints in the mud, the whispering voice, and the bare figure darting between the trees. Sometimes I wake up in a cold sweat, convinced that the forest is waiting outside my window, patient, observing, ready to remind me that some places are not meant to be found, and some people are better left unseen. It began the day my girlfriend and I moved into our new house. We dreamed about it for months. A cozy two-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood, everything just right. Our cat, Bella, explored every corner as though she already owned it. I remember thinking how perfect it all seemed, the way sunlight streamed through the windows, the faint creak of the wooden floor in the living room, the backyard just big enough for a small garden. But perfection has a way of hiding cracks. The house to our right was abandoned. The previous owner had started renovations and never finished. The fence that should have separated our backyards had been removed, leaving a strange openness between our property and theirs. Initially, I didn't think much of it. Maybe the owner had moved away. Maybe it was just an incomplete project. Fast forward to our first night. We were sitting in the back garden, wine glasses in hand, laughing softly under the evening sky. Then, I noticed something. A figure at the window of the abandoned house, staring straight at us. No flinching, no expression, just a blank, unblinking stare. The room was dark, and yet he was visible, a silhouette against the dim light. My girlfriend froze, and I swallowed hard. Maybe someone's just curious? I suggested, though my voice lacked conviction. We went inside after half an hour, trying to dismiss the chill crawling up our spines. The next few days, everything seemed normal. I went to work, my girlfriend unpacked boxes, and Bella purred on the windowsill, blissfully unaware. But the feeling never left me. That figure in the window haunted my thoughts. Then escalated. One night, while we were in the garden again, 3 men appeared, stepping over the incomplete fence. No words, no knock. They just stood there, staring. The youngest, around 29, carried a big bag we couldn't see inside. One offered us what I now know were stolen items. I joked to deflect the tension. He smiled and left. But it wasn't a joke. Their casual intrusion felt deliberate, an assertion, we are allowed here. Soon, they came more often, entering the abandoned house through the back, wandering as they pleased. It was subtle intimidation, creeping, relentless. At first, we assumed it was because we were young, a man and woman alone. The thought made my blood run cold. Then the police got involved. 2 officers came around, lifted the fence, and checked the abandoned garden. They didn't say much and left. Later, they told us the house behind us had been vacant for months and that the men had been removed for antisocial behavior. Relief washed over us, fleeting and fragile. Weeks passed, but the harassment didn't end. One night, a man we'd never seen before ran past our bedroom window, tried our door handle, and threw up the broken fence. The police came, took a statement, and left. They couldn't explain why. Then came the whistling at 2:16 a.m., a cruel, mocking sound. Someone tapping the window. Cameras didn't record it. Whoever it was knew how to evade technology. Our sense of safety evaporated. Sleep became impossible. We stayed at my mom's for a night, hoping absence would deter them. Returning, we found a Ring doorbell removed, the SD card gone. Clear evidence someone had returned with purpose. The police only advised us to lock doors and windows. But we knew it wasn't over. 3 weeks later, a man appeared outside, hood up, mask on, arms spread wide, staring at our bedroom window. He said something we couldn't hear, then vanished, only to reappear across the street for 30 minutes. The tension was unbearable. Each night, we watched for shadows, movement, signs. But the worst came at 2:52 a.m., when two masked men approached, shining flashlights through our windows. One carried a crowbar. Why us? What do they want? The pattern became clear. Relentless surveillance, psychological torment, no physical confrontation. Yet, every sound became a threat, every movement a signal. Our lives shrank to indoors, cameras, and constant fear. It wasn't just this house. It followed me everywhere. Months earlier, I had ended a relationship with Caleb. Controlling, obsessive, not violent, but calculating in a way that left scars. After moving, changing numbers, and leaving social media, I thought I was safe. Then came the strangers. People repeating phrases Caleb had used, mimicking his quirks. At a coffee shop, "Good morning, sunshine." In a rideshare, "Ever figure out what you're running from?" Each encounter left me shaking, my sense of reality unraveling. It wasn't Caleb directly, he was in rehab, but someone had replicated him. A psychological graffiti, spreading his obsession into the world, manifesting strangers to haunt me. Ensure I never stopped watching, never stopped fearing. Eventually, I moved again, disappearing, changing my appearance, trying to erase myself. But even that wasn't enough. Recently, walking home, someone whispered, still hiding behind books, "Sunshine." The dread never left. I can't trust faces. I can't trust voices. Every person could be Caleb's phantom. Every whisper a reminder. Meanwhile, my family experienced terror of their own. A planned trip to a Great Lakes Airbnb turned into a nightmare. We were 18 in total, with some of us in the main house, others in a two-story garage behind it. The garage was musty, carpeted bathrooms smelling of mold, latches weak. The first night, nothing unusual. But around midnight, the laundry machine bell rang, and I went downstairs alone. I felt a presence, unease gnawing at me, like eyes tracking my every movement. At 3 a.m., heavy bangs shook the garage doors repeatedly. No wind, no animals, no explanation. My cousins bolted upright. My aunt called my uncle. Outside, a man stood, watching. Not hiding, not moving away, just watching. Inside the garage, we found two jester cards, twisted and demonic-looking, as if mocking us. Footsteps, loud crashes, and disappearing figures became the nightly pattern. Attempts to break in, rattling doors, and distant faces in the trees haunted us until we left early. The Airbnb host never confirmed surveillance footage. Who had been there? Were they connected to the man at the garage? Or just another predator in an already unsettling landscape? Every experience, the Blue Ridge Mountains, the Chicago apartment, the Maple Lane house, the Airbnb, shares a thread. Being watched, being hunted, being tormented by unseen or barely seen forces. It's not just fear. It's calculated psychological terror. I often think about those nights lying in a tent, in a bedroom, in a small studio apartment, in a garage where the shadows moved like living things. And I wonder, who is out there, waiting for the next mistake, the next moment when we are alone, vulnerable, trusting too much? Even now, years later, I feel it. The watching never truly stops. And maybe that's the worst part.